everybody. Welcome. This session is recruiting the next generation of business leaders. And joining me is Charlotte Eckley. We'll do introductions in just a minute. But the theme for this session is the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago. The second best time is right now. So let's talk about planting some trees. So Charlotte.
Well, introducing myself again, I'm Charlotte Eckley, and you can see I'm with the Great Game of Business. I'm the Director of Operations and Product Development. I started with SRC, Springfield Remanufacturing, in 1988, right out of college, and I put, whoa, wow, because that was a long time ago, and that is to the present today. You see, I believe that rehires work because I'm one of those. This is my third time back, actually, to SRC. There's a lot of different stories there, lots of learning experiences. I never left for a negative reason, which made it easy to come back. But I also worked for a company, SRC, that believes in bringing people back and that they can learn more from those people when they go explore. And that usually when we come back, we have a little more passion for the company that we're working at. So that worked out great. So when I first came in right out of college, I became a supervisor, and I got to bring in a group of people that was a succession plan of leadership to happen over the next 25 years. It's been 30 years now. And there's a story of 9 that I'm going to tell you about later. I believe that everything I've learned is an organically grown leadership that I thank Jack Stack and I thank this company for greatly, because they took the time to teach me. They took the time to tell me what we could improve on and what I could do better. And I think that's over time. It's hard for me to sometimes even look at Great Game as a methodology, because I've learned so much of it in an organic way. I've been through 3 ESOPs, 3 versions of the game, and other stories that we'll talk about. And at the end of the day, I have a love of the game. I have a love for people. And what I love about the game is watching the self-esteem rise in all the companies I was at, everywhere we implemented. There were pockets of people that were quietly sitting in a corner, and I got to watch the smile come on their face, the pride they had when their talent started to be highlighted and they realized they were making contributions. It helped the company, it helped them, and it just made it all worth it. And so every time I went to a different company, I was only convinced more and more that what we're doing really does work. And so with that, I'm now going to turn it over to one of our greatest practitioners, Robert Isherwood with AMBAC.
I don't know greatest, but here I am, enthusiastic for sure. So my professional background is in traditional companies, large and medium size, with traditional management structures, and sort of inadvertently, I ended up in several turnaround situations as part of a management team. They were great companies, but they were very, what you might call, conventional. I came to AMBAC. AMBAC was a turnaround situation, and I chose to implement Great Game of Business because, well, honestly, because I fell in love with the people, and I knew they could run the company if they had a good system. So we are traditional manufacturing, big machines, big products, very, very, very technical world. 55 employees. We're grateful and blessed to have been a all-star member of the all-star team several times in a row. And, we have a purpose. We'll talk about that in a minute. And one of our core purposes as a company is that we are all happy, healthy, and wealthy. So I'm enthusiastic, like I said. And so I chose to become a certified Great Game coach, simply not as a career move or anything like that, but simply it's such an important thing to me. So now let's talk a little bit about why you're here, right? So the employment situation in the marketplace today. So just to use AMBAC as an example, if you can imagine in South Carolina right now, the generalized unemployment rate is 4.5% as of the writing of this slide. National is 5.9 when this was done. South Carolina specifically, machinists, which is a core, extremely important skill for us. We're looking at 13.6% job growth from 2016 to 2026. COVID aside, that looks like a very bad prospect for hiring people. You look at the job openings, they're literally off the chart, and the number of people out there in the marketplace is literally falling through the floor. So sounds like a tough market, right?
Yeah, I don't even imagine how you're doing that.
Yeah. Well, we start with an assumption, or I personally start with an assumption. This is something I learned from Sean Bradley, Vistage chair, and that is there is no talent shortage. There is never a talent shortage if you're a great place to work. In other words, people will find you. And so let's talk a little bit about how to do that and some tips from the pros. And the thinking that There is never a talent shortage. It's born out of the idea that recruiting and marketing is your best competitive advantage. We'll talk a lot about how, in my opinion, recruiting is strategy, is corporate strategy. And the way to do that, there's a lot of people in the conference, and there's a lot of great sessions that will talk about how to be a great place to work. We're not going to talk about that a lot, but I'm telling you, do the work, be a great place to work. And I think you are a great place to work. You wouldn't be in this session if you weren't a great place to work. You wouldn't be at this conference. So then as you achieve that goal, invite people to your huddles, build the community around your company through vendors and suppliers and family members, invite them to your huddles, and then tell those stories to the world, right? So be great, incorporate a lot of people, let the stories fall, and guess what happens? Great people in the community, great people in your industry will seek you out as a place to work. So that then becomes essentially the tool. So there you go. That's what
I'm guessing you're saying, Robert, that you have your seats filled.
We do, yeah. Actually, we're very blessed right now. We actually have no issues hiring, and then you could say in a sense we have a waiting list of people that want to work here.
Incredible.
So yeah, so some great place tips. One of them is I believe your company should have a higher purpose. We always say in the community, you start with a why, and your why needs to be a really high purpose. And our purpose, it's about we fuel work, and everybody has a chance or the opportunity to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. Then we move on to deep ownership and broadly held ownership within the company. So roughly 1/3 of the company is directly involved through one of our ownership committees or some other way with creating the culture of the company, right? They're creating the culture of their company. And that's really, really important. That sense of ownership. Now, our ownership committees, we actually have two. These are not party planners, right? These aren't necessarily, on the side of management. This is the way management of the company is done. So they determine the gain share, they determine our capital plan, strategy, payroll budgets, and we'll talk about some of those kinds of things a little bit later on. In other words, the men and women from the shop floor through to the operations side of the company are actively involved, directly involved in creating their company. There's an important differentiator in terms of ownership is in action. Now, a couple of typical HR kinds of things that we do this maybe a little bit differently. One of them is we have a set of common values, a core purpose, and we make decisions based upon those values, even when it hurts. So when we have to turn down business or somebody doesn't fit with the culture or something like that, you have to make the tough calls. And that's something I think is very important to enforce those standards. Now, having said that, outside of enforcing those standards, we have no employee policy. So we have no HR policy manual. It surprises people sometimes when we talk about it, but we have guidelines. And within those guidelines, the assumption is that you as an AMBAC associate will use good judgment and you'll do the right thing. It's one of our core values is do the right thing. You will do the right thing. And if you need to deviate from a policy to achieve one of our core values or protect a customer or something like that, do it. And you can do it. And it happens. So similarly, we don't have any of what I call HR childish rules, in other words, complicated approval processes for simple things, strict uniform policies, and those kinds of things. We dispensed with all those because, we believe, and I personally believe, that the people here are really great people. They're trustworthy and they're going to use good judgment. So they don't need to be, quote, managed.
Sounds like you treat them like adults and expect the same back.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a company of owners, and in that sense, we're all equal, and same level of expectation is across the board. Now,
and since this is virtual, I thought I'd ask a couple of questions here and there.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Do that. So, as we come back up to this ownership, what kind of ownership do you guys actually have? Do you actually have? You say you have employee owners. What is that set up like?
So, formally, the company is 30% ESOP owned. And then the balance of the remaining 70% is a collection of direct shareholders, and several of which are actually employees themselves.
And do you feel like that has contributed to that extra positive attitude within the company, that ownership makes a difference?
ownership it makes a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah, ownership is the difference. Let me say it that way. But it's a little bit different in that it's not necessarily about the piece of paper. It's about what happens in the day-to-day operations. It's what you call psychological ownership, and not necessarily
of their job itself, the ownership of what I'm doing today.
Yeah, exactly. Your numbers are your numbers, and your team is your team, and you protect your team. And in that sense, that we had that kind of culture of ownership.
And that's something I've seen, in some of one of the ESOPs I had been in, where they had an ESOP, the company had great cash, doing really well, but they really didn't involve the employees so much in the day-to-day part of it, and they missed so much, because it's like, once you own your job, the ESOP is the reward.
Yeah.
All the hard work. And if you miss that element, boy, you're missing a whole lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Actually, in the conference, I'm going to do a talk, and just to spoil my story a little bit, the employees decided to forego a pay raise so that they could invest in capital infrastructure for the company.
Wow.
That's ownership.
Yes, it is.
Right.
That's adults.
Yeah, those are adults behaving like adults and doing the responsible thing for their families.
And to be realistic, though, I'm sure you still have bad issues here and there from an HR perspective, right? They're humans; they make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, it says in Great Game, you'll hear mistakes are okay as long as they make the company stronger. And I would stretch that a little bit, and I would say mistakes are celebrated when they make the company stronger.
Yeah,
that's a really good thing. Yeah. So then the last thing as all the companies all the people watching this session work for great companies, and you are great leaders. I know that because you're watching the session. Get recognized, right? You're doing the things that you need to do. So apply to be an all-star, apply for the best places to work in your community, and you're very likely going to win, right? I'm telling you, you are really good. Yeah, unless you're in Columbia, South Carolina, in which case you're going to come in number 2 behind us.
Other than that, come in here and you're going to present just like Robert.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So be recognized. That's really, really important. You're doing great things, and you deserve the recognition. Awesome. And filling out the application doesn't take that long. It's not that hard. Yeah. So from a strategic point of view, this is my personal way that I think of recruiting, and you may recognize this template as coming from the HIP, the Great Game HIP tool, and typically this is a value proposition to win a customer. Turn it around, take that same level of strategic thinking and strategic engagement, and make it about to win a candidate. And so think about, what does the company offer potential candidates as an overt benefit? What dramatic difference do you provide to the candidate? What reason does candidate have to believe in the difference that you present? And then who is your ideal candidate? And, be very, very specific about that. Curiously, the more specific that we are, and we'll talk on, the better the candidate pool gets. Right? In other words, the pickier you are, the better it gets. So our value proposition to potential candidates is you're the best, work with the best. And the proof that you see as you move through the applicant process, if you wanted to do that here, is you see the scoreboards, they're explained to you, you see the work, you meet your team members, that should you choose to join the company, all invited to a huddle. I mean, it's all there. One of the things we try to show everybody in their interview process is our current cash position. And then follow that up with, as you're looking to work at other companies, how many of them will sit down? How many other CEOs will sit down with you and explain their current cash position to you?
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit of a difference.
Right. And then, it makes it, George, you're telling them, you need to buy a car, you need to buy a house when you like the security of knowing what the cash is at the company you work for.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay, so I think, Robert, we have you've made him three promises here of three takeaways. So
that's right.
I
Yeah,
think
let's
this
do
is
some
number one
takeaway.
coming up. Yeah.
Takeaway number one, we use a tool called Predictive Index. I like the tool a lot. If you'd like to ask me about it in a separate conversation sidebar, please, I'd be happy to go over. The important thing is to have a tool. So your first takeaway is make sure you're hiring what the team needs. And that is a measurable function. So we start with a team base, 3 to 5 people. We create a profile, a definition of what the job requires. And this is skills that would show up on a resume and work style characteristics, whether or not a person is, let's say, detail oriented or extroverted and those kinds of things. And after we have the definition of the profile, then we start looking at potential candidates. And those are measurable things. So that's a very important difference. So first thing, have a tool, because the most important decision you'll ever make is who you let in the door.
Now, Robert, I have had many people talk to me about worrying about pigeonhole a person, stereotyping them, but it sounds like in this, you actually have a variety of traits you're looking at, that it's not like this is just a personality test and that's it.
Yeah, it's a lot more than, it's not a personality test, and it would be, and it's a lot more, and it's not really about pigeonholing people. It's about, it goes back to our core value of everybody should be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And you are naturally gifted at many things. And if you're working in a role that uses your gifts then you're happier and you're
maximizing their strengths, kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. Like DISC profile is another one where you're talking about people's strengths and engaging, and how do you engage the strengths that people have with the role.
Gotcha.
And people move around here in the company all the time. This doesn't mean, because you're quote unquote the machinist role, you're going to be a machinist for the rest of your life. It's more about determining that, some people are really good with other people. Some people are really good with details. And you want the people who are really good with people in the people-facing roles.
Perfect.
That's all. Yeah. And then the second tool is developing the people you have, because it's a lot easier to, the recruiting question gets easier if you don't have to do it so much. So we use a personal SWOT analysis. We've eliminated the annual employee appraisal. I believe the data bears this out, that the typical annual employee process is both borderline humiliating to embarrassing, certainly completely ineffective for both the person being appraised and the appraiser. So throw it out. The SWOT analysis is where an individual will take, and they will, through their own self-reflection, determine their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and they'll determine their goals for their career. And their goals for their career may or may not include this company, and that's totally acceptable. We want them, it's a moment where you can kind of take and you can reflect on where you are this year and where you want to be. Now, I know, and it becomes part of our working relationship together, what everyone's goals are, and they know what my goals are. And so I know that some people in the company have goals to move from direct contributor into supervision into leadership position, and I can work with them and cultivate those kinds of things with those people. Other people may have technical goals or job skill goals. One person's goal is to be an HVAC contractor. That's outside the company, but the company has engaged with our local community college to get him plugged into a program where he's going to, he can pursue that goal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's hugely important.
That's really great.
And that's born out of, happy, healthy, and wealthy. That's my goal for you. And if it's here, I love it. If it's not here, I love it. It's still, I want you to be happy.
It sounds like you really know your people.
Yes, you have to know. Yeah, that's part. You have to know them, and and that's a two-way street. They know me, and and they know their supervisor and their management team has their back in the office and out of the office.
I think that means so much. I remember back when especially in my younger days, and I was started at SRC, and I remember Jack walking by and touted off something on my sheet that I had my goals set on. And and he walks away, right? And I'm just like blown away that he knew me and he knew what my goal was that was on there. And he touted that to me. And that was just super cool. That means a lot just to know he was paying attention. Really did. What else I like about your strengths and weaknesses here is that I think probably the majority of the people that would be on in this session are going to recognize this, and you've done it for your sales and your customers and done this over and over. And I think it's very straightforward. It's not some special trick or program or process we have to go through. We're all pretty familiar with it, but why not apply it to your people? I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. And we think of these kinds of issues as strategic issues, and a SWOT analysis is strategic.
Great.
Yeah. So then the third thing is to make sure you only hire the right people. And in this marketplace, this is the one thing where some people, they kind of get really questioning me about it. I learned this from Justin, who's a member of the community, and actually I think he's going to be with us in Dallas. And he said something, I captured this quote: "When you can't find the right person, don't compromise. Turn away the customer instead."
Painful.
That is such a powerful thing to do. And I know, a lot of local CEOs and other, there's we have to take the business. We got to, we got to find a way to get it done, or we got to get, no. You're, as a leader of a company, your job is to take care of the people. The people take care of the customer takes care of the profits. That's how it works. And so you cannot compromise and bring in somebody that's going to be a poor fit for the team.
Wow.
Under any circumstances.
Yeah. But that's looking ahead and recognizing the problem it could be later.
Yeah. You plant the tree you want to harvest in 25 years.
Yeah. And, I think the people that are listening, having a shortage of people that, I was just down and had a place I buy my pizza at, and there was a sign on there that said closed temporarily due to no employees. And so do you really do that? Do you just shut the door, or do you, you see your people get creative with less people? I mean, realistically, you got to still make the product, right?
Yep. Yeah. But I would I would close the doors before I would do that. And we've been in that situation where we've turned down work but on the flip side, now that we haven't been in that situation recently, and I should qualify that, because here's the thing, like we talked about earlier, the more picky or the more selective we are in the candidates, the better the quality of the team. A very, very high quality team will brag about, in a sense, right? At school or church or whatever community situation they're in, or, the neighborhood cocktail party or whatever it is, they talk about AMBAC in very good terms. So the more selective you are, the better your candidate pool gets.
And I guess you're only hiring for growth because you're probably retaining a big portion of those people.
Yeah, our retention rates are, yeah. Yeah, we have many people here who've been here longer than 30 years.
Oh, myths. There's got to be some myths,
huh? Some myths. Yeah, some common things that I've heard. So, real quick. So myth one, you begin the hiring process when you have an open position. No, the reality is you're always looking, and you need to always be looking for people all the time, particularly when, people talk about talent war or constraint, always be recruiting, always be looking for people, because that is that's your most important goal. And those people are going to be delivering great customer service.
If you see a good one, snag them, and then you can define the job better later.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll tell you a little story in just a minute, but the reactionary position of, oh my goodness, so-and-so in accounts payable quit, we got to find somebody. Well, you've already knocked yourself out, right? Now you're hoping and all you got is good luck if you can find a good candidate.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So another myth is pay will attract. And no. Yeah, the McDonald's down the road from my house has a $1,500 signing bonus. There's a company in this market that's hiring the same kind of people that AMBAC hires, and they have a $3,500 hiring bonus.
Wow.
Now, they can't find people. We don't have a hiring bonus. Now, let me make one qualification on fair pay, and pay your people generously. I believe you should be paying them well, and you should be very, very conscious about being fair with what the role is and what the value is, and get that conversation off the table, right?
I gotcha.
Push that aside. That is not the conversation you really want to be having. What you want to be having is about great work. And so a good, strong person has a lot of options and they know what they're worth. Don't try to penny pinch your way into great hires. Instead, talk about great work. And that comes out of having a purpose.
Great.
Right. Yeah. So the myth that someone is better than no one, and you might suspect what I'm going to say, that is a false choice. Great is an option. Great is always an option. However, it is never easy. Right. But you don't, the idea that you got to put somebody in, what they say, a body in a chair. No, you never have to do that. So then the last myth, this feels like a good fit. And I know a lot of people who I've heard this in different forms where people say, well, I would never hire anybody I would want to have a beer with, or I only hire people who are fans of SEC teams or whatever, all kinds of things like that. That only works if you like staring in the mirror, because I don't care who you are, whatever, you're a human being and you have, kind of biases or comfortable norms in your world. And if you hire people that think like you, or, like to drink beer like you or whatever, you end up hiring a lot of clones of yourself. You've destroyed diversity of thought and creativity within the company inadvertently. I mean, you did it with the best of intentions, but the reality is that and one of the things that Predictive Index and the approach that we use is that we hire people from a very broad range of work styles and backgrounds and things like that. Mm-hmm. So the feeling, sometimes you hire people that you might not like, I don't really know because I drink beer and they drink wine. That's kind of weird. But what you gain is this wonderful, rich diversity of approaches to problem solving. Isn't that what you want?
Yeah, I think, to any new young leader, for sure, I always am. That's the number one rule, I think, is hire someone strong for your weaknesses, and as a team together, you can be so strong, but you got to be secure, because it's easy to go with the one that feels good and comfortable, that's familiar to yourself, right? So very great point.
Okay, so real quick, let's go through some scenario planning.
All right.
So this is where it gets fun, and in the live session, this may be a lot more. But let's talk about it. So we're hiring for a tool maker. And a tool maker is a person who literally makes tools. It's a machinist. It's a very technical position. It takes a lot of experience and skills, sometimes many years, to be a really great tool maker. And it's an extraordinary difficult position to hire. Good tool makers are as rare as hen's teeth. So that's the role. Candidate number one has the experience, the skills, the no issues, good background check, all that kind of stuff. So they've been around the block, you're very confident that they can do the job. The profile match in terms of personalities is about a 90% match, but it is actually higher than the incumbent. So that you would be moving up in that sense. The team, we do team interviews. The team says overall, the candidate seems very nice. They like him. It's a good guy, good gal kind of a thing. In one of the comments from the team is they weren't very curious about the open book management and scoreboard. And the reason they're looking for to change is they want more pay and better hours. So what do you do?
Wow, the drum roll. The answer is, what does Robert do?
Yeah, survey says, no, you don't hire him. You don't hire him for two reasons. One, the profile is 90% is below our minimum. Our minimum is dead on as a perfect match. And then the other one is the little red flag, or let's say yellow flag, is that they're not very interested in the scoreboard, or they didn't seem very engaged about the concept of open book management. That is how we run the company. And if you're not a participant, there are many companies to work for. This isn't one of them. Yeah. So interview two. So here we go. Not so great on skills as interview one. They're new in their career, kind of young in a sense. They do have a good training background. So let's say they're developing their experience level. Their profile is 100% match. And the team says they asked tons of questions. One of the questions that was mentioned, they asked, what's a cog, when they were looking at the scoreboard.
Okay.
So what do you do?
I'm going to guess on this one. I'd say this is a hire.
This is a hire. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Because the thumbs up in my mind are they're curious. They're asking questions about the company. It doesn't matter to me necessarily how much people know on the way in, if they're a good fit. We're betting on a very long term. We have people who've been here for 30 years and in multiple roles in the company. Skills are important. I'm not saying that they're not, but skills are teachable.
Very good.
So interview 3. So a strong candidate with experience from a competitor, which is always a kind of a cool thing to have, an 85% match on the profile. Now, this person has a very high level of sociability, their extroversion, not great attention to detail. So a little bit lower than what the profile would require. The team response is that they're really fun. They're a great person to talk to. Comments are they're bored in their current role. They're looking for a new challenge. And coming into the interview process, this is actually somebody I've met with. Coming into the interview process, they had already done an enormous amount of background reading about AMBAC in the trades and products and stuff like that. So they knew a lot about the company before they even showed up.
So they were low on detail, but they at least did their homework. Mm-hmm. They're bored, but they also want a challenge. So that sounds like they'd put some work into it.
Yeah.
Team seems to like them.
Yep. Team really likes them.
What'd the team do?
Yeah. Survey says hire, but not for the role.
Oh.
Yeah. So here's something that happens. You hire, but for a customer-facing role, customer service or sales. So our sales cycle is extremely technical. Having somebody with experience and the technical chops to make the sales really, really important. And here's something that happens occasionally here. We'll meet a candidate who's a really, really great candidate and a really good fit for the company. We don't have an open position for that role. So we hire them and they make the position.
Gotcha.
And we've had that happen in the past. In fact, one candidate came in and they turned down a more lucrative offer for a less cool company, a less great company, to come and work here and create their own role. So in that terms of, people are not coin operated. They're desiring of great work and challenges.
Yes. And, that takes a lot of courage to do that, I think, because you're jumping out for the future. You're looking at a bigger picture. And, Robert is the CEO. And if you're not the CEO at your company, I can imagine sometimes you're like, oh, they haven't approved the position. But, you just might have to push for that and try to build the vision for your boss or the CEO and share some of these things you've learned, because I think in the end, it's really going to pay off for the company.
Yeah, that's really, really important to do. Over the next 5-ish years, 10-ish years, I personally believe that the companies that are going to be successful are the ones with the best teams. Right. And the companies that are kind of weak on culture or weak on what I'll call ownership, they're going to be historical, and so.
Good point.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. We're already finished with your part there, Robert.
The story of 9.
Oh my gosh. And then how do I even follow that up? Because what is so great is having Robert here. He's a practitioner. He lives this every day. He's the living proof. It's not someone saying, look what I learned that a company did, or I've seen this company do that. He's actually done it. He lives it every single day. And it's my favorite part of this conference is listening to people that are doing it and the things that work for them, the things that don't, and trying to grab those ideas. And it's the luckiest thing for the Great Game and SRC, all these 30 years almost now. Next year's the 30th year for this conference. And it's about learning from each other. And that's helped our company. That's helped us be who we are today because of what everybody else is saying. And it's what this is all about. And that goes back to planting the tree 25 years ago. I think about, it's the planting of the company. It's these people, but the people make the company. And 25 years ago, what's a little more than that, on these people is it's been about 30, but it was back in 1990. Myself, and there's a girl on the left there, Laura, was brought in by Bev Willis, who's on the very top there by the 9. And we were brought in and asked to be supervisors and bring in this team of people that Jack had a vision, and I'll put it on him because I had heard it that way back then, is that he had a vision that he wanted the next level of leaders to start learning the company, start cross training so that they could be the level that we needed of leadership down the road. And we're going to look at where those people are now 30 years later. Bev Willis is now retired. She's the person at the top. She was our sales administrative manager, director, something like that when we first came in, and she started to bring us on. And she is now she's retired from SRC after, I think, 35 years. She is also on our board of directors of SRC, our corporate board of directors. And she's just definitely somebody that is respected, admired throughout the entire company, and has helped this SRC company be what it is today. Laura is over there. She and I were both supervisors. She's now our VP of Finance in SRC Holdings, places one of the top roles next to a CFO, and she is amazing. She has done great things, been with the company over 30 years. Rich Armstrong, actually president of Great Game. I actually got to hire him, and that was a lot of fun back then. And I got lots of stories on that young man, even though I'm only a couple of years older, so it's not like he's a young man. But anyways, he has been the general manager of several facilities. He came up through the ranks of sales. He was our market research guy back in the beginning, and he just learned and grew with different locations of SRC to the position he's at today, which he does an amazing job at. Jennifer Pott, she's been with the company 30 years. She started out in sales scheduling, working under Laura 30 years ago, and she is now at one of our locations as a sales manager over a department of people that are the up and coming group. Several young people there right out of school that she's repeating exactly what we did back then and bringing them up as another level in the company. And Gary Getz right there in the middle. Gary was as a general manager at New Stream Enterprises. He has done that for a very, very long time with a very important customer of ours. They have a joint venture, but he now is also a vice president, executive vice president of holdings as well. And he has done a lot. He started right back there with Rich. I got to hire Gary as well. And he had just gotten married. Rich, I didn't have any children yet. And Gary has children now. And we got to watch everybody go through that. You got Tom and you got Janet. Tom has been with the company, did the same thing I did. He's a rehire as well for 3 times, just like me. And so he's done a variety of different things, from general managers to helping out on our holding side. He does a lot with our coaching group now. And so Tom has been a great contribution to the company. Jana, a lot of you talked to her. She's actually managing the speakers, but guess what? She's actually a contractor, but she feels like an employee. And she's one of those that has left the company and come back, and we just keep coming back. We just can't stay away. And we love having Jana back on the team right now. And I don't see her going away anytime soon if we can help it. And then you have Dwayne Jackson. He's just an incredible person that I remember back in the day was not necessarily that young graduate right away from college. He wanted to get into engineering. He liked getting his hands dirty. He kind of shake his head at all of us every now and then. Very great attention to detail kind of guy. Went on through the ranks in different directions than the rest of the group, went through engineering. He is now the general manager of one of our largest locations, our SRC automotive plant. Done an amazing job, and I'm watching him bring the game into that location, and it's just super fun to watch. Again, he kind of had left and came back, and he's just stronger than ever. And then there's myself there on the end, who you kind of already know that story, although there's a lot more to go, but we don't have time for that. So if I catch up with any of you guys, I'd be glad to share a lot of the fun stories I have had along the way. And I can tell you the tree was planted. What was that?
That's so great that you have a company where people come or they leave and come back. You can cultivate their relationship over many generations almost.
Yeah, it's just interesting, the bond that is created through this company, but yet the open door is there. You're almost, when I left, the last time I had left, I had 3 different going away parties, and everybody cheers you on and says good luck. I mean, as long as I was going to do a lot more things that were Great Game related, internal coach and stuff like that. But the first time was because my husband went back in the Marine Corps when I was young, and I had to leave, and we moved to North Carolina. And so there's different reasons we all had done those things, but I remember when I came back this last time and I went through a sales and marketing, they were all meeting for that. And all I got was welcome home from everybody. And it just warms your heart. And it's funny that everybody isn't like that. And I'm telling you, it's a great way to keep your people, retain your people, knowing it's okay to come back. It builds a solid foundation, really does. Plus, we all did stuff for the company. Every time I left, I was always trying to help out. I was trying to bring customers or referring customers, referring employees. I mean, I was doing that the whole time I was at a different location, just like you've been talking about, Robert, that the word spreads if you have a positive experience.
Absolutely. And people who leave and come back, they learn things that are very valuable and they bring them back.
Absolutely. And because that's a concern, right? You want to retain your people, but if you have the same people for 30 years, do you have enough new ideas? But if you just flow a few people in and out, you can get some of that back.
Yeah.
I just want to end it on a note here, and I'm going to a little bit of a methodology, but I wanted to hit on leadership because, and I wanted to talk about some of the core beliefs we have. And I feel like, again, I organically learned every single one of these things. I feel like I took it with me everywhere I went, and I truly believe them all. And one is, if I don't inform my people, somebody else will. Given the opportunity, people want to learn the business. They truly do want to learn. They're usually excited to learn. Provided the education, wow, you believe in me, people can learn the business. Some of them have not had that person to encourage them and tell them to go get that education, or even to sit down and teach them how to do a budget. But wow, you're going to educate me and teach me that? Boy, does that go a long ways. Given the trust, this is my absolute favorite one. People will make the right decisions for the business. And I do feel like, from my heart, if there was one thing SRC has done for me, that Jack Stack did for me, was trusted me from the beginning of my time when I was young, that 24-year-old starting out right out of college, and to have people trust me and show me that I could make a decision and believe that I was smart enough to make those decisions. It just built me who I am. And it made me make a lot of great decisions in my personal life as well as the business life and every company that I ever went to. So that was huge. Given the respect, people contribute to the success of the business, and people should share in the rewards they help create. What's in it for them, right? There's got to be some share in the rewards. It's not just a one-sided type of deal. And the last four I want to talk about, the leadership traits here, is that when you're hiring people and you're looking for those leadership, look for vulnerability. You want to know that they don't think they have all the answers, that they can be a little vulnerable. They're going to pull the answers from their people and know that they don't have to know them all. You want them to have humility. They're going to be willing to ask for help. And you want to have servant leadership that are focused on the needs of the team and the company, not just themselves, that they're about the others that are sitting there with them in every meeting, that are sitting there having their families they're trying to work through trials and troubles with, and that this isn't just all about them. And last of all is to have courage. Got to be ready to open up and release control, because control feels really good sometimes. And it makes you feel like, everything's intact, but you got to have the courage to let go and release that control and work as a team together. Yeah. So with that, Robert, I think I'm about finished, and I'm just so curious. I think we're going to have a roundtable after this, and people get to ask us questions, and that's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the leave behind that if you go to AMBAC's webpage, ambacinternational.com/careers, apply for a job, apply for any job that, whatever you think. And you'll get, as part of that, the predictive index profile of yourself. And you can kind of see how we look at
Oh, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's great. That's a great takeaway, Robert.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think we are going to let everyone loose here right now. It's been great being with you, even though we don't see all of you right now. But we hope to see you in the roundtable and get a chance to actually chat with you.